Okay, so picture this. You wake up one morning and bam, you're the lottery manager. Like, it's on your business card and
I'd
everything.
probably check that I wasn't still dreaming.
Right, exactly. But assuming it's real, what's the first order of business on your agenda? Besides maybe, securing the lottery ball vault.
Oh, absolutely, the vault, first and foremost. But after that, I think I'd want to dive into understanding the games themselves.
The games themselves, okay, so not just like pick a number, any number. There's more to it.
Way more to it. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're looking at Lottery Manager, not from the player's perspective, but from the inside, thanks to some really insightful resources from RoleCatcher. Have you ever used RoleCatcher?
I have. It's not your typical job board, that's for sure. They go so in depth on the skills, the career path.
And the industry itself. They gave us the inside scoop on what it really takes to manage a world of jackpots and lucky streaks and, well, everything in between.
Because I'll admit, when you said lottery manager, I was picturing like a very official looking person with one of those giant lottery ball blower upper things.
Oh, the classic anthem.
Classic. But then I dug into this role catcher career guide, lottery manager, and let me tell you, it's less about blowing lottery balls and more about, well,
Blowing minds with strategy.
exactly.
It's such a unique blend of operations and entertainment. You need a head for numbers, of course, but also a real understanding of what makes people tick.
Because it's a lottery, right? Not a guaranteed wealth distribution system. People play for the thrill of it, for the hope.
In managing that hope, that's a huge part of the job.
It is, and that's reflected in like the crazy range of responsibilities they outlined in the guide. For instance, who knew that even as a lottery assistant, you're not just fetching coffee, you're like neck deep in the rule book.
Making sure everything is by the book, because even a tiny error,
Oh, it could be a disaster, right?
absolutely, it could undermine public trust, and that's critical in an industry built on fairness and, well, random chance.
Right, right. So even at the entry level, there's a ton of pressure. And then let's say you climb that ladder, you become a lottery coordinator. Suddenly you're
Wearing a strategic hat, you're reviewing procedures, finding ways to make things more efficient, maybe even brainstorming new games.
new games. See, now that's fascinating to me because I'd never really thought about the psychology that goes into designing a lottery game.
It's essential, though. In fact, the typical responsibilities section at the coordinator level, they actually highlighted market research.
Seriously, they're out there doing focus groups, asking people like, what kind of scratch-off ticket speaks to you on a deep personal level?
Not exactly focus groups, but you've got the right idea. It's more like analyzing data on past game performance, looking at things like sales figures, demographics, that sort of thing.
Oh, right, data. Because you can't just like slap a picture of a pot of gold on a ticket and call it a day anymore, can you?
Not in this day and age, no. And that's where the tech side of things really comes in. Remember those industry trends we talked about? The RoleCatcher report, they highlighted a massive shift towards online platforms, mobile gaming, all that.
Right. It's not just your grandma's lottery anymore, is it? It's apps, it's online scratchers, the whole digital shebang. So even if you are designing a physical scratch-off ticket, you've got to be thinking, how do I make this appealing to someone who's used to playing Candy Crush on their phone all day?
Precisely. And that requires a whole new set of skills, right? Lottery managers today, they need to be comfortable with data analysis, digital marketing, even user interface design.
Okay, which is, I'll admit, a little intimidating, but also kind of exciting. It's like, who knew that managing a lottery could be so, I don't know, cutting edge?
It's a constantly evolving field.
And that's where a tool like RoleCatcher becomes so valuable, right? Because they don't just tell you what the job is, they tell you what you need to learn to get there.
Exactly. They have that AI that can analyze job postings and then actually pinpoint the specific tech skills you might be missing based on your experience.
So it's like having a career GPS. You tell it where you want to go, and it maps out all the skills you got to pick up along the way.
That's a great way to put it. It's an incredible resource, especially in a field like this that's evolving so rapidly.
Speaking of evolving, let's fast forward a bit on this career path, right? So you've paid your dues, you've mastered the tech, you've even designed the hottest new scratcher game on the market. What's next?
You're gunning for the corner office. You want to be the lottery director.
The head honcho, the
Ah.
big cheese.
Exactly. And that's where those leadership and strategic thinking skills really come into play, because you're not just managing games at that point.
Right, you're managing people, budgets, relationships with, like, all the stakeholders.
You're essentially running a business. But with, the added wrinkle of navigating a very complex web of regulations, public perception, all of that.
Because lotteries, I mean, they're kind of a lightning rod, aren't they? People have strong opinions.
Absolutely. And as lottery director, you're the face of the organization. You're dealing with the media, government officials, the public.
Talk about pressure. And speaking of pressure, RoleCatcher, they actually included some sample interview questions for, aspiring lottery managers. And phew, some of these were intense.
Oh, I bet they didn't hold back.
Not at all. Like, how would you handle a situation where a winning ticket is lost or stolen?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a classic ethical dilemma. You'd have to
Yeah.
demonstrate a clear understanding of the rules and regulations, but also, consider the human element involved.
Right, because there's always a story behind those tickets. Like, imagine losing a winning ticket that was supposed to pay for your kid's college. That's rough.
It really highlights the weight of the responsibility that comes with this role, doesn't it? You're dealing with people's dreams, their livelihoods.
And probably their occasional conspiracy theory about the machines being rigged.
You're probably not wrong about that.
Okay, so we've established this is not your average desk job. You're juggling strategy, psychology, technology, ethics. I mean, it's a lot. But here's what I really like about this deep dive, and it's something you touched on earlier. It's not just about being a lottery manager, it's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. What we're seeing in the lottery industry, it's like a microcosm of what's happening across so many other fields. This rapid pace of technological advancement, it's changing everything.
And those changes, they're creating a demand for totally new skills, new ways of thinking. Like, it's not enough to just be good at your current job anymore, is it?
Not at all. You have to be constantly learning, evolving, adapting.
You have to be, what's that word? Future-proof.
Yes.
And that's why, even if you're listening to this thinking, lottery manager, hard pass, I think there's still a ton to take away from this deep dive.
Absolutely. This episode is a perfect example of how even these seemingly niche roles can offer really surprising insights into broader industry trends and the skills that are going to be essential for success no matter what the field.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, but there's one more thing I can't quite shake. RoleCatcher mentioned the potential for ethical dilemmas in this line of work, and I gotta admit, that feels like a bit of an understatement.
It's definitely a factor to consider. We're talking about an industry that walks a very fine line between entertainment and, let's be real, potential addiction.
Right, and when you're dealing with something that can be addictive, there's a huge responsibility to make sure you're not exploiting vulnerable people.
Absolutely. Transparency is key. So is promoting responsible gaming and providing resources for anyone who might need help.
And it's not even just the players, right? It's the whole, like, managing giant sums of money thing, which, let's be real, could be tempting for anyone.
It's a valid point. Integrity is like non-negotiable in this role.
Yeah.
In fact, the role catcher guide even highlighted background checks, financial disclosure requirements, that sort of thing, as standard practice.
Which, yeah, makes total sense. You want to make sure the people handling those winning tickets are, squeaky clean.
Exactly. And it's not even just about like preventing outright fraud, right? It's about making sure that every decision is made with transparency and accountability.
So it's like you said, running a tight ship, but also with this whole extra layer of social responsibility woven in. And that's something I think we often forget when we think about, like, the lottery. It's easy to get caught up in those individual stories, dreams of winning big, but
there's a much larger societal impact to consider. Lottery funds often support education, infrastructure projects, social programs.
it's true. That scratch off you buy at the gas station, that could end up funding, like, a new library or scholarships for kids. Wild.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, generating revenue, but also giving back to the community in a way that's meaningful. And that requires lottery managers to be, not just effective administrators, but ethical leaders as well.
Okay, so we've gone from picturing someone with, like, a bingo cage and a whistle to, well, someone who probably needs a whole lot more than that to do their job.
They'd need their own data center at that point.
Right. Maybe a whole team of behavioral scientists on call 247. But in all seriousness, as we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts for our listeners who might be, rethinking their entire career path after this?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that in this crazy, rapidly evolving world we live in, even the jobs that seem, very specific, they're changing too, expanding in ways we might not even think about. The line between like niche and mainstream, it's blurring. And the skills we've talked about today, strategic thinking, adaptability, being able to make ethical decisions, those are valuable everywhere.
It's so true. It's like that saying, the only constant is change, or something like that.
Exactly.
So if a lottery manager can handle that, hey, We can all handle a little career curveball here and there,
I
right?
absolutely embrace the unexpected, stay curious, and never, ever stop learning. You just never know what incredible opportunities are waiting for you.
So well said. And for anyone listening who wants a little help, navigating those opportunities, be sure to check out RoleCatcher and all their amazing resources. Seriously, their free features alone, they're game changers, pun intended, obviously. They might even inspire you to explore a career path you'd never even considered, maybe even one involving, well, a whole lot of lucky numbers.
You never know. Their insights are truly something
They
else.
really are. Okay, on that note, we'll leave you with this. As technology keeps changing, reshaping everything, what other surprising career paths do you think are out there? What's going to be the next lottery manager? Until next time, keep those brains buzzing, keep those dreams big. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.